of the Naftgaz of Ukraine. Good afternoon. Thank you very much for coming to hear about our ambitious plans. We would like to talk, first of all, about why we believe this reform is very important, so urgent, and what brought us to understanding its necessity. First of all, we understand risks for Ukraine as one of the biggest consumers of gas in Europe. First of all, it's a deficit of gas and a very difficult situation during negotiations with Gazprom, which is a monopolist of providing gas to Ukraine. And we believe that we have to change the situation as soon as possible. Deficit of oil and gas, or Naftogaz. You know about numbers we had before, and you know statistics about the project and about the state budget as to compensations of expenditures of Naftogaz. Those numbers are very big, and we have to change the situation. One of the main elements of the reform, in addition to security of Ukrainian consumers, who should get enough of gas, in addition to necessity to develop, to make a transparent situation. And the third element is to improve profitability of Naftogaz until at least the zero level, when the company will be able to make enough of money to cover its expenditures. A loss of the market of transit of gas to Europe, a gradual loss. And also, we should join EU market, EU gas market as much as possible. Risks for EU countries. We have to remember about that too, because our reform has a goal to solve the crisis. We have to develop a European tool how to solve problematic issues with Gazprom, and have to look at experience of work of European gas operators. Such issues as disbalance, what to do with different gas meters. But they don't have those ideas. So what to do with when there are reverse flows of gas? That is regulated. We suggest to regulate the same issue on the Ukrainian market. And of course, the last important issue is attractiveness of Ukrainian market. When Ukrainian market joins EU market, and that will allow European companies to get access to Ukrainian users to make money here, and it means there will be more diversification of gas supplies to Ukraine, better quotation transparency, and better profit of Ukrainian gas and fuel system. Or a pipe. Here we have the main four goals of the reform. The first and the most important is energy security of our country. Second, open competitive environment. And if we look attentively at three last points, and to preserve the market, we have, and also to improvement of state assets, enlargement. Those are three components of energy security of Ukraine. The last element is also a source of profit for the budget, for tax inspection for all of us. What Naftogaz suggests to do? First of all, legal structure of the company, we should put that in line with the third energy package, and it's about the reform of Ukrainian gas transportation system. And we'll speak about that a little bit later. The second point, the most painful, difficult issue for us, And we started a public discussion around that. We are collecting different opinions and calculations of the general situation in the country and military activities, and they limit our movements. But the next week we will present, as we promised, on one of the TV channels, we will present all the concept, why it should be done, and what will it give to us. But briefly, there should be one wholesale price for gas. That will solve lots of issues. First of all, that will enlargement of volumes of gas mined in Ukraine. Because now the prices don't allow Ukrainian companies to mine more gas in Ukraine. And that issue will solve, that price will solve a lot of corruption, will help to trade better with EU countries, and it will make a gas market transparent. It will give some additional profit for Ukrainian budget. The third important element is to motivate rational use of gas and energy in Ukraine. We see a lot of opportunities as to saving. Those opportunities could be realized. We'll suggest that program to Naftogaz, also to other ministries. We had negotiations with the bank, Bank of Ukraine, and they will consider how bank can give cheap and simple loans for people to buy and enterprises to buy energy-saving technologies. Here, on this slide, we explain why we believe that the third energy package makes sense to use it in Ukraine, makes sense for Ukraine. If we look at the first point, in order to fight monopoly in Ukraine, gas monopoly, European countries have some experience of how to diversify gas supplies. They had a goal to reduce a share of one provider to the level less than 60%. They achieved that goal. We should have the same goal, and we should achieve it in some time. Other points, there is no need for me to read them for you. They're quite known. I wouldn't like to read that from the slide. These are our proposals on how this reform should look like, especially transportation and preservation of gas, of storage gas. That's why I'm late, and I beg your pardon, because we discussed these proposals at a PEC committee in the parliament. We have a transitional period, and we hope it will start when the draft law we developed through the Ministry of Fuel and Energy, if it is passed in the parliament tomorrow. The state of Ukraine will have in its ownership gas lines and storage, underground storage, and we will set up 2 companies. Then, on the basis of those companies, we set up, organize 2 operators of transportation system and operator of underground storage facilities. If you ask why do we want to divide this? Because we don't speak about physical separation, we speak about separation of 2 legal entities. The final goal of this separation is to maximize profit of operators of that gas pipe. That business is built on the wish of people to speculate on a difference in prices, to speculate in a good sense, because all the gas market, if it is competitive, speculation will bring to optimization of prices, to a balanced price between consumers and providers, suppliers. Underground storage of gas, that's usually a separate legal entity in Europe in order to provide conditions for gas owners, and that will allow owners of the storage to get additional profit, additional value. That's the only goal we have when we separate legally the pipe from the storage. And at the bottom there is a little reference, and we discussed it in the committee how to control shareholders of these companies. There is no need to reinvent a wheel. There is a tool used in many countries of the world, mechanism of monitoring the final owner. It should be used on the stage of signing the agreement, when it will be clear with whom to sign that agreement. And also in the end, in the final draft law, this participant will be approved by the Parliament of Ukraine. So the process will be transparent. Also, we planned that in the agreement there will be a paragraph, which is quite a standard for such agreements, that if there is a change of the final owner, and in theory we understand that any company in the world, in theory, Gazprom can buy it. So Ukraine will have the right, if such an owner is not acceptable, to stop their contract, any contract with that company.
And the final model that we plan to implement, in English it's called asset light, should be operational for the short-term prospect, and for the Ukrainian part that will provide the efficient ways to cooperate with the European market. The maximal goal is to maintain trades at the current level, to increase even in the best case scenario, and show the European consumers and partners that the Ukrainian gas transportation system is reliable, transparent, and most importantly, not needing any replacement. And very shortly, I would like to explain here what I discussed in terms of nuts and bolts of this gas transportation business and gas storage business. If we look on the third subunit 1.1, 7.1, sorry. This is the ratio of market value and the operational value. If we talk about specific operators of the system, their ratio is much higher than the usual transport companies' ratio. This is one of the reasons why we think it should be separated. It will be much higher in its value. That's very simple. And naturally, we should not forget about transformation of other elements of the gas markets of Ukraine. The same is true for the distribution segment, the segment of Obel gas entities, the third package separating transportation and supply of gas. And we said that production segment reveals the main secret of success, the gas price for production companies, state-run production companies. At this point, private companies can sell at 400, and Ukrgas are selling at 30. This is not correct, this is not feasible, this is not right, simply. And the national regulator, its real dependence on the marketplace, independence from the market players, should be provided for in real terms. Yuri Kotnyuk, legal bulletin of Ukraine, legal herald of Ukraine. Let's come down to the procurement, public procurements for legal services. Now you are in Stockholm with Gazprom. You have this arbitration. Why did you decide upon a minor Norwegian law firm that is very far from gas and Gazprom as a subject? Why do you think that they are far away from Swedish law and from gas topic? Gas as a subject. This is not true. We in 1, 2, the most successful cases against Gazprom. I'd like to recommend to you to visit their website, RWE case, and another very important case in Europe. And then you'll understand the choice of companies was made based on several principles. Principle number one, big positive experience. In that company, they have about 40 such cases pending. Unfortunately, only 4 of them reached the court decision stage because 90% of cases against Gazprom, they have pre-trial dispute resolution. And if you look at the ratings in the Scandinavian countries, it belongs to the highest level of arbitration lawyers. It's enough, in our opinion. It should be about the reform. All other questions you can put at a different opportunity. There are plenty of them now. I'd like to. Mr. Prodan said that for 2 weeks we had the reverse supplies cut from 18 to 7 million. What can we survive the winter season without Russian supplies? We think that this is a temporary drop that is explained by prolongation of certain decisions in Hungary on the scope of gas that is put into the underground storages. The Polish line, we are receiving all the scope. This is not very comfortable, but it is also not very critical because the main scope of reverse supplies we plan to get from the Slovak direction. We'll launch it only in September. It's close now. UBR, 2 questions. How will you provide heating for the east and the heating season? Can you guarantee that it will be a normal one? And we need 6 billion cubic meters of natural gas. At what price and where are we going to get it? And our current plans for heating of the east. The same, and the rules are uniform regardless of the end user and its location. Kurtransgas are now working on all the regularities in gas supplies. The figures that you offered should be partially or fully compensated with the saving measurements that are being implemented, and we plan to reinforce them. That's it. Andriy, into Tatiana states, is it known when this supervisory board of Ukrneft will be called? What's the reason for cancellation? Because the dividends are at 1.3 billion. When will you arrange their meeting? This supervisory board of Ukrneft consists, unfortunately, of several people who are not within our reach, and they have to be replaced. For that, we need the shareholders' meeting. For the shareholders' meeting, we have to comply with a certain procedure, and 45 days after the announcement, and this has been launched already, and we hope that, by the way, by the beginning of September, the decision will be taken as to replacement and distribution of dividends. Can I put it in English? Post.
It said 2 to 3 years. What needs to be done legislatively for that to happen? 2, how, if an IPO is conducted for Ukregazvydobuvanie, how will that affect the joint activity agreement with Misen, the Swedish counterparts, that have access to 50% of after-tax profits? And would you mind also saying who are the end owners or end beneficiaries of Misen? Thank you.
No, I have not seen information about the UBRs of that company. It's presumably a Swedish company with private investors who remain undisclosed so far. They don't have access to 50% of net profit, but they, as a joint venture, have access to 50% of profits from sale of natural gas, which is extracted in addition to existing extraction level of Ukrsdobывание. So that should not be misinterpreted. That's a bit different thing. Speaking of joint ventures of Ukrsdobывание, one must understand that the nature of joint venture is artificially low price. This company can sell gas. You cannot, for example, do fracking if you get only $30 per 1,000 cubic meters, whereas any joint venture, no matter who the counterpart is enjoying $400 price, which is based on the price to industrial consumers. That is why there are not only missing, there are, if I'm not mistaken, 7 or 8 other joint ventures at similar scale. Pretty much similar joint venture is in Ukernafta. The only way to remove those joint ventures is to increase gas prices at which Ukrsdobывание is capable to sell gas, and then repurchase assets of Missing or any other company. Because what Missing is doing at the moment, it's implementing compressor stations, increasing production of gas in Ukrsdobывание, and they actually getting 50% from the increased production. That's the difference.
I have a simple question. I'm diverting you from the topic, but what's happening in Stockholm? How are things with arbitration? This issue is confidential, number one, and I can disclose very little. I do not want Gazprom to accuse us of an attempt to put some pressure on the arbitration, both Gazprom and us. We submitted our files, claims. Now they are appointing the arbitrators, and Naftogaz are doing everything to make it fast track, but we have to understand if the other party can spend on that 5 days. We cannot limit that. We hope that that will be concluded in the forthcoming weeks, and we'll start review on the merits. Now this is preliminary ICTV. The purchases of gas for the winter season, where the prices reconciled, and the reduction in consumption. You said that the consumption will be reduced, but there are no benchmarks. In which year and by what percentage? So what are your benchmarks? And the first question, let's start with the second one. The targets are very specific. It's all reflected in the Cabinet of Ministers resolution that will be promulgated in the nearest future. For each category of consumers, they have specific reduction in consumption from 10 to 30%. In fact, what simplifies the situation, makes things easier. Yesterday we had a meeting with the representatives of gas distribution companies in the field, in the oblast, and they observed that there was a drop of gas supplies versus last year, same period, very considerable because of the sluggish economic operations of certain enterprises and savings, and actually frugal policy of the households. We'll check on this. The limitations will be imposed in August already. Coming back to the Russian gas price, yes, and the scope. At this point, the situation with Gazprom is in arbitration. There's no understanding of whether Naftogaz will be able to come to terms with the a Russian counterpart for gas supplies. That includes the scope and the. We are open for this dialogue, and we hope that it will be launched. If it is launched, this issue will be regulated in court. And in litigation, there are certain stages, like the procedure for fast track for support of the claim.
Naftogaz will choose which tactics is the best. Two questions. In the reform of Naftogaz, the government is planning to use European experience and to cooperate with EU, but during the last then they agree on meeting the Minister of Energy of Ukraine without participation of the Ukrainian party when they discuss those issues without Ukraine, EU with Russia. How would you comment that? Russian party is one of the biggest suppliers of gas to EU. There is nothing surprising that Mr. Oettinger would like to have a bilateral meeting with representatives of Russia. The same bilateral meeting will be with representatives of Ukraine. We don't see a problem with that. And secondly, that was an expected meeting, and we knew about that in advance. The second question. With your advisors, we came to a conclusion that in Ukrainian legislation there is no final owner is not outlined. There is no such word as a beneficiary. Will you initiate to use that international term in Ukrainian legislation? Which laws of Ukraine should be amended for this reform, for your reform to be efficient, and which new laws Ukrainian Parliament must pass? For the first question, that will depend which law or which country, according to which law, will sign the agreement about the partner country. In the Western law, in their practice, the final beneficiary becomes known. For those who believe that that right should be exclusively Ukrainian, I want to say there is a banal calculation here. Investors got used to English law. It is well regulated. We can choose our unique road. Probably it will be negative for the value of shares, because investors, they love general rules, general accepted rules, and they love English law, and that's it. But we can introduce such a term into Ukrainian legislation. It's not a problem at all. In the draft law, which will be brought to the parliament, it has changes. Amendments suggest amendments to let's say the law on that gas pipe and the law on oil and gas. Those are the main laws we are talking about. Which volume of imported gas will be cleared by the customs? 13.9 billion cubic meters were provided, and the problem of customs clearance of gas, that is the nature of the problem comes from Russia. There is only one price in documents of Naftogaz. In documents of Gazprom, they have a different price. Ukrainian legislation demands to have the original document. Now, if we use it, we just postpone. We would like to work on this little issue later. We want to regulate the issue of import of gas with a clear price, because it's very difficult to predict anything in this field. Then a question about the reform of the structure of Naftogaz. What about corporate governance, and what about the best practice of corporate management, and like independent board of directors, and how to improve the transparency in the structure? We are in the process of deciding about the new structure of the company. That means we should have a new board, new management. And in 2 or 3 weeks, we will make a presentation of the new structure, which will include Naftogaz and also changes in relations between Naftogaz and its subsidiaries, because we have a lot of them, and we have several requirements to them, and there are different tools how to regulate different issues. If there is any question about the reform, ask it. If not, well, we have to move to the next speaker. In your presentation, you spoke about the distribution of gas and regional gas, regional Naftogazes. You have to use all the norms of Europe EU to distribution networks. What will happen in the future with the oblgaz regional structures of Naftogaz? What will you suggest to the owners? And state property fund is not planning to stop privatization, and so what will happen? The third energy package as to gas supplies will divide transportation and sale. There should be different legal entities. That's the main change. As to regional gas companies, it's interesting, it's important, but not principal. We have to speak about the owners of oblgaz. For us, the most interesting is not in the third package, but it's in relation between state property fund and also oblgaz. Oblgaz took the commitment to repair gas system and to develop them. They have to pay rent for that, and because that's property. It has value. That's the most important aspect. It's not Naftogaz which is responsible for that, but we like to raise that issue and with the regulator, and we believe that using the analogy of how rent concessions or management of gas pipe will be used, or gas transportation system will be used, the same principle will be used here. If there is if there is an owner of that state property, then the state should receive some profit from that, from those assets. In our opinion, the price is very low. We should look at the problem in the broader context. If the state would like to make money on this property, a good profit, then a regulator, who on behalf of the state regulates tariffs, should should include that rent, that profit in the tariff. Should include it. According to audit of Naftogaz, what is the value of all the assets, all the shares of the gas of Naftogaz of Ukraine? Approximately. I don't know whether the audit can answer this question, because not everything was audited in Naftogaz, because the value of Ukrainian gas transportation system, it's about $25–35 billion. That's the price of it. That's the value of it. The big difference is because there could be a big difference. There is an issue how that asset, how much profit that asset makes. So, and then it will influence on the price. The same about gas. Ukrainian gas is good. It would be good if it cost $1 billion. That will be good if we speak about a regional office, but that company will cost more than $10 billion. So, Gas, you have to look at the profit of the company, because that have influence on how much an investor would like to pay for it. You can put any number, but if it doesn't meet requirements of the market prices on the market and other potential shareholders, if they don't believe that this is the price, it will not cost that. Thank you very much. Good luck in reforms.